Hey guys, welcome to the Working Man Sports Talk podcast, where we like to talk to other working men about sports. And if you aren't a man, well, who cares? Welcome to the show. We're going to talk about college football madness because it's crazy. Am I right, John?
It is. It's really crazy.
I mean, it's at that point of the year where the rankings kind of start to make a little bit more sense, but at the same time, it can get a little muddy because look at the AP top 25, because now there's like 4 teams are allowed in this thing now. Am I correct? I think it's 4 teams.
Yeah.
And the college football playoff, because before it used to be just 2 teams and that was it. And now they got 4 teams. They need to expand that thing, but that's beside the point right now. But looking at the top 25, well, before I even get there, we had the big games this past weekend to really staple this thing in for who was going to be undefeated. And that would be Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and Florida State. All of the teams that are left that are undefeated in college football right now. And then below, then you got Oregon and Ohio State and whatnot. So now with championship weekend upon us, the question, I guess, would be is what could happen with the possibilities of things that could take place this weekend? Because there's some serious big matchups here. There's Georgia and Alabama for sure is looking to make a statement.
I feel
then
like
you got. Oh, what was that?
I feel like after that game, Alabama and Georgia, whoever wins that is staying in the top four or going to the top four.
So, with Georgia finishing 12-0 and Alabama, so basically you're saying it doesn't really matter what they've done all the way up until the conference championship.
Pretty much
at this point. I guess at this point.
I was like, does it not feel like that though?
I guess when you're at the point when you can have the same record, possibly, because they would have the same record, I guess it would be whoever takes the conference at that point would represent them in the playoff. So I guess that makes sense. So that technically that Georgia and I almost said Michigan, Georgia and Alabama game is a playoff game.
It is. I mean, that's how I look at it as. Then you even have with like Washington and Oregon. Like, I wouldn't say I don't think Oregon has a chance
to make. You don't think they do?
No, I think.
That's wild.
Hear me out.
That's wild.
Hear me out. If Oregon beats Washington, if Alabama beats Georgia, and if Louisville beats Florida State, you know who's going to the that top four?
Ohio State. But with them losing to Michigan, and if Texas wins their championship, would Texas even go in possibly?
No,
Texas beat Alabama.
But think of it like this. I'm saying if those 3 teams won out of all the teams I named, Ohio State would take that 4th spot. But who's a better team? Like, if you look at both teams, you sat them down on paper, and what you've seen of them this year, who's the better teams?
Of who?
Alabama, Ohio State, Oregon. Like, who's
honestly out of those teams? Probably Alabama.
No, are you kidding me right now?
Well, let's be serious here. I think that Oregon has a very, very super good offense, but they give up a lot of points defensively. And then Ohio State, they have the whole QB situation that doesn't always work out in their favor. Alabama lost 1 game and it's been taken off. Alabama was trying to find themselves when the season started.
Every team that's starting over a little bit is trying to find themselves. You say the same thing about Ohio State. They're just trying to find themselves these first couple of games, and they just dropped it. No,
and you know what? They couldn't even win the big game.
No,
they couldn't even beat Michigan.
Why are you bringing that up for right now? That's off topic.
It's because they're finding themselves, right? Well, it's the end of the season. I guess they haven't found themselves.
Well, then what happened to Colorado? Because they found themselves in the first game. They never found it after that.
Colorado's not even part of this conversation because they're not even ranked.
But
we're talking about the ranked people. We're talking about the undefeateds, the Georgias, the Michigans, the Washingtons, the Florida State. The people see the real question about all this is what's going to happen with Florida State because they're on their 3rd string quarterback.
They don't have the best roster. That's why I didn't name them. Without Jordan Travis as their quarterback, there is no way in hell the people who do the rankings are going to let Florida State stay in the top 4.
Well, let's just say though they are in top 4 right now.
They are.
And if they win out this weekend, they're going to the playoff.
No,
they are.
No,
I'm telling you, they are, because that means they won the conference and they've gone undefeated.
That's not gonna. Really,
and they're playing against Louisville.
Sorry. Sorry to burst your bubble there, son. But that's not
if they win, they go to the playoffs. They're undefeated. They'd be 13-0 and they take the conference. If they can't go to the playoffs because they went undefeated, and I don't even know if they're going to win. They probably might not win, but maybe this third string kid comes in and dominates. But if they win, that's 13-0, win the conference, and they're already top 4. That you're right into the playoff.
So you want to see them with a third string quarterback play against Georgia?
It's not about what I want to see. It's what they earned.
No. Answer the question.
It's about what they earned.
But answer the question. But But is it worth seeing them on TV with that roster?
Yeah, they earned it. I'll say so. Especially they beat Louisville, who was a very good football team this year, sitting at 10-2, ranked number 15. So if they come through, I'll say if the Seminoles come through and they're on the third string quarterback and they win the championship against Louisville, well, that means they have more than proven that they can play, that they can overcome adversity, win with the third string quarterback, and continue to keep moving the rock. I don't think he even played really that game. So it's definitely gonna be interesting to see what happens. This is what's so fun about this is things get crazy now, because if Florida State wins, and let's say Washington wins, and Michigan wins, and Georgia wins, well, then all those teams are going to the playoffs. Now let's say Florida State wins, and Washington wins. Let's say Michigan drops against Iowa, and then Georgia drops against Alabama. Who goes in?
Ohio State.
Ohio State and who?
Ohio State would be number 4.
Would Michigan drop out because that loss to Iowa?
No.
So if Alabama beat Georgia, though, and Michigan lost to them, then Alabama would probably get in because they won their conference championship and beat Georgia, and then Michigan would stay. And then if Washington and Florida State won, there's no room for Ohio State there.
There is. Because who would you rather have in the playoffs, Ohio State or Alabama?
Alabama if they beat Georgia, because that means they took the conference and they proved it. See, here's the thing. No matter if you're Oregon or Ohio State or Texas or even Alabama, you got to be in a position to play the number 1 person in your conference. You know what I mean? So Oregon has a chance to get in because they could beat Washington, take the conference and tie the record, and then that maybe put them over. Florida State, they went out 13-0. They took the conference. They're in. They're already number 4. Michigan has beat Ohio State. And if they lose to Iowa, Iowa doesn't go in. Michigan probably just stays. And then in Georgia, the same thing with Alabama. So because you're an Ohio State guy.
I am an Ohio State guy.
You need Florida State to lose. And just maybe you could get in. But right now, it's not looking like you're going to be in the playoff.
We need more than just Florida State. We need.
Well, we already said if Georgia loses, Alabama's in. That's what I'm thinking.
I don't. Because I think for Alabama to get in, they're going to need Michigan to lose. They're going to need Washington to lose, and they need Florida State to lose.
No, I think maybe, but again, they would both be 12-1. And Alabama, if they won, would have the conference championship, which wouldn't that qualify them since they took the championship to go represent the conference?
No.
Really?
Yes.
Even with they're both 12-1?
Yes.
It's going to be a very interesting weekend on championship weekend to see what's going to happen. Because I look at Washington and Oregon. That game is probably going to come down to the wire. I know you said it doesn't seem like Oregon has a chance. Oregon is really good.
I never said that. Oregon is really good, but I'm saying.
I thought you said they didn't have a chance against Washington.
No.
Well, I thought you said that earlier. But if, let's say, okay, Washington is 12-0, Oregon is 11-1. Let's say Oregon beats Washington and they're both 12-1. Who goes to the playoff?
Well, it comes down to this. Was it a close game or was it a bad beat?
Field goal. Field goal.
Field goal? I think what would happen is Washington probably dropped to number 4.
But what if Florida State won?
They'll still drop down number 4.
And then Florida State would go to 3?
Yep.
All right. And you think that Oregon wouldn't get in, even though they won the conference championship?
I don't think
And they have the same record now.
I don't think they will get in.
See, that's, I think, where we differ, because I think if Alabama wins and Oregon wins, I think they go into the playoff and represent their conference.
So you're gonna let Iowa in if they magically?
No, because Iowa doesn't have the same record.
No. You would.
No, they don't. Iowa doesn't have the same
16
record.
overall.
Yeah, but Iowa is 10-2.
So if Louisville wins, do they automatically make the playoffs? Because
they're 10-2. They don't tie the records. That's what I'm saying. If Alabama's 11-1, if they beat Georgia, they're both going to be 12-1. And Alabama would take the conference, which means they would push them out and represent the conference because they both be 12-1. That's what I'm saying about Oregon and Washington. Oregon's 11-1. Washington's 12-0. If they beat them, they'd both be 12-1, but one would take the conference and take all the chips. And represent the team.
Now, when it comes to the playoffs, because it doesn't work that way, you have to get.
Look, you just want Ohio State in there, and that's just not going to happen.
It is going to happen. Watch, and when it does,
that's like me saying, like, you wanting that to happen is like me saying, I want the Gophers to be represented.
No,
that's not going to happen. It's a pipe dream. It's just not going to happen.
Well, you can keep living your pipe dream.
It's not going to happen. Okay, it's not. Ohio State will play in a really good, solid bowl, but I don't think they're getting in the playoff. They blew that chance.
All right, Kyle McCord.
They did. They blew that chance. Isn't that your quarterback?
That is.
He threw that interception. So, again, it's going to get really tricky and really slippery. And I'm really excited to watch what's going to happen this season, or the ending season here, this ending playoff season, the championship weekend, because, man, there's so many different variables, so many different things. Because what's really going to throw a wrench in this is if Florida State wins out.
Then that can't happen. It's not going to happen.
But if Florida State loses, that opens up possibly for Oregon or Ohio State to get in. Maybe even Texas. Depends on if Texas, how they even perform. Speaking of Texas, Arch Manning got his play the other day.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of that. Some of the highlights. It was like a couple of runs, wasn't it?
Yeah, a couple of runs, and I think he completed a pass. They play against Oklahoma State on Saturday. That's going to be a good game.
I guess Texas. I can't say steamroll them, but
that's going to be a good game.
What's his name? Quinn Ewers, I think his name is.
Mm-hmm.
If he goes off, it's game over.
Arch Manning went 2 for 5 for 30 yards passing. It was kind of cool to see him out there.
It was.
See, Oklahoma State, they are sitting at 9-3. They're a pretty competitive team.
They are, but
So if Texas loses, though, then they're out of the equation, and Ohio State doesn't have a game. And then if Florida State loses, that could open up. If Texas loses, I'm just saying this for your sake. If Texas loses and Florida State loses, Ohio State can get in, possibly. But if Oregon beats Washington State or beats Washington, then Oregon gets in, and maybe Washington might stay, or they might flip it to Ohio State. Maybe.
Or will they just put Oregon at 3 and Washington at 4?
Possibly. So it's a really tough situation for Ohio State to try to get in. So they should have won that game. But yeah, this is wild. Who would you like to see in your Final Four? Just curious.
Michigan, I think, should be ranked number 1.
Ohio State. Oh, an Ohio State guy just said that. Wow. Okay.
Hey, they beat us this year. I'm not.
Oh, the last 3 years.
Hey, okay, the last 3 years, but I'm saying this year is different. They beat us when we were ranked the number 2 team. They were ranked. Ohio State was ranked number 1 at one point. So I think Michigan, with them beating Ohio State, should be ranked number 1 overall right now.
Okay, so who's your top 4 in your playoff?
So Michigan, number 1, Georgia number 2, Washington number 3, and Ohio State number 4.
Wow. If I had my top, I would go Georgia number 1. Number 2, I'd still keep Michigan number 2. Because especially if Georgia wins out against Alabama, that's a different level of play than Michigan playing against Iowa. So I'd go 1 Georgia, 2 Michigan, 3 I would put in. You know what? I'd be okay. I'd be okay with this Final Four right here. I'd take Washington or Oregon in there, and then I would keep Florida State. Now, if that doesn't happen and Ohio State somehow makes their way in there, I'm going for Big Ten team, Michigan, Ohio State to win this thing.
It's going to be Ohio State.
Represent Big Ten here. But I would not mind that. And I could take Washington or Oregon in the Final Four here. I mean, I could do Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Oregon. I could do Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Florida State. I could do Georgia, Michigan, Washington. What?
I feel like you're rapping there for a second.
Oh, no. I could do those. I could do that. I could do that. So that's just what I would say. But what we're saying could totally just flip the script. If, let's say, all those teams lose. If Georgia loses, and you don't believe in this, Alabama takes it and they go in. And let's say Washington loses, Oregon takes it and they go in. Florida State loses, Ohio State going. That could be Alabama. That could be Oregon. That could be Ohio State. And maybe even Washington.
I think, all right, I take this back. Washington needs to beat Oregon. Alabama needs to beat Georgia. And Louisville needs to beat Florida State for Ohio State to get in.
It's getting a little bit too real now, isn't it?
That's what it's going to happen. Watch. I'm calling.
Okay, well, we'll find out and we'll do a follow-up video to this. We'll do a follow-up podcast to this thing and just see what happens. Like I said, it's all fun and it's exciting. Like I said, I love this time of year. I just love college football and college basketball, but now we're in college football madness. And I've been enjoying it. I'm guessing you've been enjoying it besides that loss last week.
Oh, yeah.
It's been tough for me as a Gophers fan because it's just not where we need to be at right now. But that's besides the point. I don't have anything else to talk about. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Just keep rolling that boat.
Yeah, that boat sunk. All right, guys. Well, look, I want to thank you for listening to the Working Man Sports Talk podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.